Welcome to Fantasy and Enchantment, where I describe fantasy books to my husband and see if he is enchanted. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Justin.
This week we're talking about Quicksilver, which is Book Talk's newest favorite book. There's another one that's up and coming that is kind of overtaking it, but very popular still after months. Everybody talks about it.
Isn't Quicksilver a Marvel superhero? Like a really lame one who just runs quick?
Yeah, he's basically the Flash.
Yeah.
And also, this will become important for the book later. It's also what they used to call Mercury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Okay. Well, I don't know what you know.
That's true.
As far as I know, you don't know shit.
Sometimes I can't tell my ass from a hole in the ground.
Also, content warnings. Whoops.
Look, yeah, I said ass already.
Yeah.
And hole in the ground, if you're offended by that.
Okay. Content warnings, spoilers for the book, all the things. Yeah.
So is this not about the Marvel superhero?
It's not about the Marvel superhero,
Okay.
no.
All right. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Because I don't know what kind of books you're reading. Maybe you're reading comic books these days. I don't know what you're doing with yourself.
I'm pretty sure you would have noticed if I sat on the couch with a comic book.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably would have noticed.
I hope you would have.
Well, I don't know what's in these books. Maybe it's some weird erotic fan fiction of comic book characters.
Stop.
Okay.
Okay. We'll do the description,
And then I get to see the cover.
and then you get to see the cover.
I like a good cover.
And am I missing anything? I don't think so.
Probably a map. There's always a goddamn map.
Oh, yeah, I think there might be a map.
Of course there's a map. Is this an individual book or is this a big long series of books?
So this is the first in a series. The next one's not coming out until next year.
Well, good. That means I don't have to talk about any more of them in case I hate it.
Okay.
That's a win for me. Chuck one up in the Justin column.
All right. Are you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
So we'll start with the description.
You're unprepared. Isn't it on the back of the book?
Not on this one, no.
What the hell kind of book doesn't have a description on the back cover? You've got the book and it's got no description. I've already got a problem with this book. Unacceptable. How are you supposed to know if you're in the store whether or not you want to buy the book?
You look it up.
No, you put it on the back of the book. That's what you do. That's why back of books exist.
Well, this one was just picked up by a traditional publisher, but it was independently published also.
Well, if you're independently publishing it, you would definitely want a description on the back so that people would pick it up and be like, oh, this sounds interesting. Not be like, oh, well, I'm usually pretty confident with this publisher. I don't know if publishers are like record labels, but they're like, in the early 2000s, I knew if I saw on the side of an album, if it was made by Wind Up Records, chances are I was probably going to enjoy that album. So whether I knew that band or not, I would probably pick that up if it was only a couple dollars.
Okay.
I don't know if books work that way.
Not really, no.
Not really. Well, then you put a goddamn description on it, is what I'm saying.
You made your point.
Good.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
In the land of the unforgiving desert, there isn't much a girl wouldn't do for a glass of water. 24 years
Suck a dick. Continue.
24-year-old Sarah.
I derailed the whole thing. We're only a couple of seconds in. I've already derailed the whole podcast. It is over, folks. This is going to be a good one.
Oh my god, okay. 24-year-old Sarah Fane is good at keeping secrets. No one knows about the strange power she possesses, or the fact that she's been picking pockets and stealing from the Undying Queen's reservoirs for as long as she can remember. But a secret is like a knot. Sooner or later, it is bound to come undone. When Saris comes face to face with Death himself, she inadvertently reopens a gateway between realms and is transported to a land of ice and snow. The Fae have always been the stuff of myth, of legend, of nightmares, but it turns out they're real, and Saris has landed herself right in the middle of a centuries-long conflict that might just get her killed. The first of her kind to tread the frozen mountains of Ivelia in over 1,000 years, Saris mistakenly binds herself to Kingfisher, a handsome Fae warrior who has secrets and nefarious agendas of his own. He will use her alchemist magic to protect his people, no matter what it costs him, or her. Death has a name. It is Kingfisher of the Agen Gate. His past is murky, his attitude stinks, and he's the only way Saris is going to make it home.
Also, I love in all of these books, they're like, the Fae are things of legend. I am 99% sure I'd never heard the word Fae 6 months ago. until we started doing this.
Well, now
So,
you've heard it a bunch.
yeah, it certainly wasn't a thing of legend, because I think if I just walked up to random people on the street and asked them, hey, what's a fae? They would think I'm a crazy person. Also, why would you walk up and talk to a stranger on the street? That's a thing crazy people do.
I mean, if you said fairy, they might know.
Yeah, fairy, maybe. Fae.
Fae and fairy are basically the same word.
Yeah, I'm aware of that now.
Okay.
But 6 months ago, if you would have asked me that, I'd be like, I don't know what the hell you're talking. You said it wrong, is what I probably would have said.
Okay.
All right.
You ready for the cover?
Let's see it. I can see a butterfly on the back cover already.
You've already made comments about this one.
Great.
So, you said this was Jon Snow a few weeks
This
ago.
is Jon Snow, for sure. I don't want it. Is he just a cranky bitch the whole time, too?
Yeah, kind of.
Do you like looking at his butt? Because I know you're real into Jon Snow's butt.
Look.
Why is he crying? Huh.
We'll get into it.
What a little twink.
Justin. Stop. I know your parents didn't do the best job of teaching you this, but...
We don't believe in emotions where I come from.
Yeah, I know.
It's not a thing. We just raised a generation of sociopaths. And you married me. Now we're raising our own.
Hopefully not a sociopath, actually.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, main character, Saris.
Saris. How do we spell that?
Saeris.
Okay. Already a bad name. Continue.
Okay. She's being held by a guard. He's got his hand around her throat. He asks her for her name, age, and what ward she lives in, because the place she lives in is separated into wards.
Okay, are we in like old-timey? Is this America?
No, this
What
is
are
a
we doing?
completely different world. So the only map is the place that she goes to eventually. It's not the place she's in right now,
Okay.
but she'll be there eventually.
That's not even much of a map. It's just...
Well, again, she's an independent author. She didn't have... there are people, apparently, whose like full-time job it is to make maps for fantasy books.
God damn it. Could you imagine if that was my job? The first time I met your parents being like, oh yeah, I make maps for fictional books in weird worlds that don't actually exist.
That probably would have gone over a lot better than when I told them what you actually did when
That's
we
true,
met.
because when we met, I ran a dick store. And that was fun conversation. Let me tell you right away, when you are a person who works in the adult industry at a store selling vibrators and dildos and lingerie to people, when you tell someone that's your job, you get two reactions. You either get absolute silence and that person never wants to speak to you again, or you get asked a million goddamn questions. And it's good to have all the questions because I've got a lot of stories about selling dicks to people.
Okay.
Your parents did not take the latter.
My dad said, that's not good.
I think he said that's troubling. I think that was his exact quote.
Either way, not excited.
Yeah, he was not thrilled about it.
Okay.
I had to win them over a little bit.
Yeah.
Still not always sure that I've done that. But I don't sell dicks anymore.
No.
But I'm still very well versed.
Okay.
Not in dicks, but like, you know, the sex.
Okay.
Full sex.
Yes. Let's continue.
All right.
So, the guard tells her that lower citizens aren't allowed in the capital, which is where she is right now. Each ward is separated by a wall, so it's like set up like a big circle. There's an outer wall around the whole city. The capital's right in the middle, and then the wards are like around the capital.
Okay, how many are there?
I think there's like 4 or 5.
Okay.
She gives him a fake name and says she's from the 3rd ward. And then the guard freaks out and drops her and says that ward is quarantined. So she is like playing it up because she's trying to get away.
She's got the COVID.
Yeah.
Is what's going on.
She starts coughing and then she grabs his leg and she says, please, I'm so hungry. The guard takes off, he's got a gold gauntlet on. He takes it off and throws it on the ground because she touched it and she's supposed to be quarantined. But then Sarah sees it and then grabs it and bolts
Because it's gold.
because it's gold.
Yeah. She's a scavenger. She's like a meth head looking for copper and cutting out catalytic converters.
Not quite.
She's from Florida.
Okay. She starts climbing the wall separating the capital from the other wards. She gets all the way to the top. The gauntlet starts like vibrating a little bit and it's kind of like talking to her and it's saying, she sees us, she sees us. but then it stops a second later.
Okay, so she's got a talking glove.
That'll be important later.
Smell the Glove.
No.
Smell the Glove was a fictitious name of a Spinal Tap album in the movie This Is Spinal Tap. It's a really... They did a really great job with their fictitious album names. Shark Sandwich, Smell the Glove.
Okay.
Intravenous de Milo.
All right.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Go watch Spinal Tap if you've never seen that movie.
All right.
Stop this podcast right now. Watch Spinal Tap. Come back. And continue listening.
Let's keep going with this podcast.
Oh, right. This
okay.
podcast.
Okay. She goes to Elroy's forge. She works for Elroy. Elroy is a metalsmith, also a glassmaker. She's known him for a very long time.
He melts down catalytic converters.
Okay. He says he will not melt down the gauntlet because Queen Madra's guards are now going to be looking for her because she stole, technically, from the queen. Elroy used to make rebel weapons because there used to be kind of like a rebel uprising happening where they live. He was also kind of in love with Ceres's mom. He tells her to take the gauntlet and throw it back over the wall because she needs to get it out of the kingdom. Because she says that she needs this to get her and her brother out of the capital and away from Queen Madra. Her brother's name is Hayden. She says everything she does is for Hayden. She finds Hayden on the ground in front of a tavern, and he's bleeding. He says Carrion beat him up again.
I just assume Hayden was born in the early 2000s when everybody named their kid Hayden, Jaden, Aiden, Braden, and Caden.
Might have been, yeah. Also says that Carrion has his scarf. So she goes in the tavern. Carrion is like a ginger guy, and he's sitting at a table.
So he's got no soul.
Okay. He's sitting at a table with 3 other people. Her and Carrion slept together once, and he has not stopped bringing it up since.
Like a true ginger. He got laid one time, and he just can't let it go. Because nobody will ever want to touch him again. It was purely a mistake. It was probably dark, and she couldn't tell.
Okay. The owner of the tavern comes up to her and says she does not want any fights today. Tells her that Hayden is banned for 24 hours. So Ceres goes out. She gives Hayden the bag that she's got the gauntlet in and then tells him to wait outside. Because she's going to talk to Carrion to try to get his scarf back. Because he's really attached to the scarf.
Okay.
So she goes up to Carrion and says he wasn't supposed to gamble with Hayden anymore. And Carrion says Hayden begged him to play it and tried to stab him when Carrion wouldn't play another round. So it's like, I was just defending myself. Carrion talks her into having a drink and says he heard someone stole a piece of armor from a guardian. And also that the guardians are going to destroy their ward trying to find it. And Sarah says, like, yeah, I know, I'm going to fix it. So she leaves, goes outside, but Hayden is gone. She runs to another tavern. Hayden is outside surrounded by guardians. She starts yelling that she stole the gauntlet, not Hayden, because he's got it, so they think he took it. Guardians start coming for her. She starts fighting them off and kills 2 of them. And then they eventually...
They're pretty crappy guardians if some random street thug just offed 2 of them.
Well, she's still lost because they subdue her and take her to the palace. Captain Heron takes her to meet Madra, the queen. And then Ceres is like pissed off at this point because this queen has been around for a long time. They call her the Undying Queen because she's been alive.
Kind of like the Queen of England for a really long time.
But now she's dead.
Yeah, she's dead now. But
she's dead now.
What was she, like 274 when she finally died?
No.
That bitch was old as hell.
She was.
Good riddance.
Okay.
Monarchy.
She tells the captain that her ward, each person is allotted 6 ounces of water in a day. And they live in a desert. So that's not enough.
Probably doesn't pan out. We lived in Phoenix for 9 years, and that's probably not enough water.
No. They go into like a really big room, and Sarah sees like a dais with something sticking out of it. She can't really tell what it is, but she does feel like pulled toward it in this weird way. Heron ties her hands behind her, and then the queen comes in and calls her a low-born rat.
Sounds accurate, honestly. I mean, she's climbing walls, she's stealing things, she's melting down catalytic converters. Sounds like the queen's on it.
Okay.
Nailed it.
She demands to know where Ceres learned to fight. And Ceres says she taught herself. So the queen smacks her in the face and then asks if the Fae sent her. Ceres is like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, because nobody knows what Fae are, because that's not a real word until just now.
Well, in this world, Fae are supposedly mythical creatures.
Right.
Madra tells Heron to deal with her and then go after the 3rd ward. You took something of mine, girl, and I am not in the business of letting theft slide, so I will take from you. First, your life. Then I'll make a column.
First, your life. That's a great way to start.
Then I'll make a column of greasy smoke out of those who matter to you, and when they're gone, I will tear the third ward to the ground. So she's telling her she's going to burn everybody alive.
That's cool. That's a badass response to stealing a glove. That's a real Justin solution.
Yeah, it is.
Overreaction. I thought they were just going to like cut her hands off or something.
No.
Like they do in those markets. Is that in Africa? I don't know.
Okay.
There's a market. It's the cover of a Mayhem album. If you get caught stealing, they cut your hands off and they hang them up above the market, like the entrance to the market. And the cover of the album is a picture of these severed hands hanging from the thing. It's a real picture too. Like they actually went there. They asked them about it, and they were like, "Yeah, that's what happens." And they took pictures of it, and they were like, "That's a badass cover of our album." And they're not wrong. It's a cool cover. Death Crush, good album, although not as cool. I can see the look on your face. You're like, stop talking about black metal. Nobody cares. Not as cool as their cover of their one bootleg album that they did, where their lead singer shot himself in the head with a shotgun and blew his brains out, and the guitarist was the first one to find him and took pictures of it.
Oh my God.
And then used it as the cover of their album.
Oh my God.
Dawn of the Blackhearts. Google that one. Actually, probably don't. It'll scar you a little bit. It's pretty fucked up.
Are you done?
I guess so. I'm the only one. That was solely for me. Nobody else wanted to hear that.
No, not really.
Just for me.
Okay.
Sometimes I just do things that I find entertaining.
Yeah, and we all suffer for it.
You're welcome.
So Madra leaves. Heron pulls out his sword and stabs Saris in the stomach. So she's got her hands tied behind her. She can't really do anything. And then he pulls out a dagger, and Saris is thinking, like, I have to stop him, I have to stop him. So somehow the dagger, like, stops, like, before he can stab her again. And then Saris manages to melt the dagger, and the liquid metal first melts onto the floor, and then it starts climbing up him. And then he calls her a heretic. Saris limps to the dais. The thing she saw sticking out is actually a sword, and it's, like, buried in there. Heron tells her not to turn the key. So she, like, turns around, uses the sword to cut her hands free, and then pulls it out and swings it at Heron. Saris all of a sudden realizes that she's no longer standing on solid floor. It's like a pool of liquid metal. And she falls over and sees black smoke coming out of the pool. She thinks it's death. She thinks death is coming for her. She was just fucking stabbed straight through the middle.
Right.
A tall guy with one silver eye is standing over here.
Is he a pirate?
He's not a pirate. I said silver eye, not like
Not an eye patch. It's
not
just...
an eye patch. And it's
Is he a cyborg?
no. So it's not that it's metal. It's not like a fake eye. It's that instead of like your iris, he's got metal in his iris.
Okay.
And he says, "Graceless gods, what's this? A fucking joke?" I thought that was a really good character introduction.
All right.
Heron starts yelling. The tall guy goes to him, asks where Madra is. Heron is yelling about obsidian, saying he can't have it. The guy kneels in front of Saris and gives her, he's got like a necklace on, he gives it to her, and then picks her up and carries her into the pool. She passes out on the way there because she's bleeding a bunch.
Right. Also, she just got carried by a weird smoke guy into a pool of metal.
Yes.
And he's got a silver eye.
And he's got a silver eye.
Yeah, this didn't take a real wacky turn. All of a sudden, my weird detour onto Mayhem album covers doesn't seem as weird as what's going on in this book.
Okay. Saris hears a voice and opens her eyes and realizes she's in like this big fancy room. The door opens and a blonde woman walks in and gives her water. Her name is Everlane. Saris notices that her ears are pointed and she's got really big teeth. I could see you thinking about asking a question.
Yeah, so first of all, her name sounds like a street name, not a human being's name.
Okay.
Or a fairy's name, or whatever the fuck she turns out to be with her giant teeth.
Okay.
Is she part horse? She's got a big long face and
No,
feet?
not like that kind of big teeth. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but here we are. So, in this book, the vampires and fae have been kind of blended, so she's got like the canines. The pointy canines.
Oh, okay. So she's part vampire.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. She got vampire teeth, not big teeth.
Okay.
I was trying to think of somebody who has notably big teeth, and I'm also trying to not be like offensive too much. Or like start naming names of people.
Okay. I know that's a struggle for you.
It is. Like, sometimes I try to not be an asshole.
Okay. Sarah?
Vampire teeth.
Yes, vampire teeth.
Got it.
Sarah starts freaking the fuck out because she thought the Fae were not real. She grew up hearing stories about them, basically saying that they brought war and disease, and that they ate people, which is kind of true.
Nom nom nom. People meat. It always comes back to people meat.
Oh my god. Everlene asks what she remembers. She says the captain was trying to kill her. Someone came out of the pool of silver. Everlene says he came because the sword was calling to him. They are in Yvelia at the Winter Palace. So now she's in this other place that's in the map.
Okay. So she teleported.
Sure.
I mean, how else did you get there?
Well, the pool of silver was like a portal that she opened.
Yeah, she teleported.
Okay, whatever. Whatever.
Right. I'm ridiculous, not this silly bug.
You are ridiculous, actually.
All right, I guess I'll take it.
Yeah. The door opens and a big guy comes in. His name is Renfis. He says...
Renfis? Like
Renfis.
Memphis, but Renfis?
Renfis.
Renfis.
Sometimes she calls him Ren.
Renfis. That sounds like what a stupid person would call Memphis. Renfis.
Okay.
Or like a deaf person. Like, you can't...
Don't do it.
Don't do my deaf voice.
No.
My deaf voice is way too spot on. She hates it.
Anyway. Renfis says he needs his chain back, in quotes.
Okay.
Renfis says he's struggling without it. Saris takes off the necklace that the deaf guy gave to her and gives it to Renfis. He says he needs to leave before the king knows he's there. So no names, but they're definitely talking about the guy that came to get her.
Right. The cyborg.
Sure. Everlane suggests that Saris take a bath. Sarah says...
Bitch, you stink.
I mean, yeah. 6 ounces of water is not really enough to bathe.
Yeah,
So.
you stink to high heaven. Also, shave your armpits while you're at it.
Okay. Sarah says she needs to go home to her brother.
Smells like a can of tuna in the hot sun. All right.
Everlane says that's not possible. Sarah says that Saris is important. Her father wants to see them in an hour. And then she says her father is Belica de Bera, king of the Yvelian Fae.
Those are all words that don't make any sense to me. What did you just say?
His name is Belican. That's the one.
Belican.
Yeah. He's the king.
Okay.
Everlane is his daughter.
Okay.
So Everlane picks out a dress for her, and then they go to meet the king. They walk past all these weird statues. Everlane says these are the gods that they worship. Styx is the god of shadows. Kurin is the god of secrets. Nikanai is the goddess of masks. Malleus is god of dawn and new beginnings. Bel Mathin are twin goddesses of the sky. And Zareth is god of chaos and change. And this is when Saris remembers that the place she lives in has 2 sons. They are called Balia and Min. So they got those names for the 2 sons from the Fae gods.
Okay.
So there's some kind of connection.
So I like how this woman has written and created an entire, like, religious structure, and it doesn't sound any more ridiculous than the Bible.
Well,
They're all imaginary friends.
they get to the grand hall. There's a big dragon skull in the middle of the room.
Oh, no, we got dragons, too?
And we got dragons.
All right.
Dead ones.
Well, I mean, obviously, at some point, they were alive dragons.
They were, yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, so there's not actively dragons in the book.
That we know of at this point, no.
Okay,
They're all
but they
extinct.
may be later.
There might be, yeah. Who
I
knows?
don't want it.
Okay,
You're going to hear that a lot.
great. There are 6 chairs. The king is sitting in one of them. He has the sword that Saris pulled out of the portal. There's a guy sitting next to him, and he asked why Saris isn't bowing, because she's standing in front of the king. And Saris says he's not her king.
Isn't it weird that kings are always just sitting in a big room surrounded by people?
No.
Like, that's all they... I mean, I guess they didn't have, like, TV and shit back then, but, like, they're always just sitting on a chair waiting for somebody to show up. They're never doing anything.
Okay.
Get a job, king. Be productive.
Okay.
Bum.
All right. The king says she has to follow the rules once she leaves the room. And she has to learn about them because she was brought there to fulfill a task. Sarah says she doesn't know about any task, like she just kind of ended up there. She's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So she needs to get home to her brother. The king says her brother is already dead.
We killed him.
Well, Madra said she was going to destroy the third ward.
Right.
And then he says, you're charged with awakening the Quicksilver and reopening the pathways between this world and others. Your cooperation in that task will dictate how you spend your time in Evalia. Rail against your purpose, and life within the walls of this palace will become infinitely more uncomfortable for you. So he's basically saying,
Do what I say, or I'm gonna slap your ass around.
Yeah. So the pool she was in was Quicksilver.
Right.
Somehow she had the ability to open it.
Hence the name of the book.
Yes.
It's actually not named after the Marvel superhero, as it turns out.
No, well, as I said,
I was still holding my breath, thought it could
no
happen.
connection.
Thought the Flash was just gonna show up and start running around real quick.
Okay. All right.
Look at him go!
All right. The king dismisses them and tells the guard to bring in the dog. He literally says, bring in the dog.
It's not gonna be a puppy.
It's
Spoiler
not,
alert.
no, not. Seven.
Much like when you told me you were pregnant, and my first response was, I hope it's a puppy. Turns out it wasn't a puppy.
I was not.
Spoiler alert, 9 months later, we got a goddamn baby.
I was not, in fact, pregnant with a dog.
Well, I would have liked a puppy. Also, actually, really what I wanted was a goat. I wanted a pet goat. You wanted a baby. We compromised, and we got a baby. 'Cause that's how compromise works when you're married.
Okay.
You compromise, and you do what your wife wants.
I'm about to let you buy a motorcycle, so.
That is on the docket. I'm going to go look into that today. Motorcycle.
So don't tell me you do what I want all the time.
Not all the time. Sometimes I just do whatever I feel like.
I
Get a
know.
wild hair up my butt and just do things.
Not goat stuff.
Also, midlife crisis. I'm almost 40. I need to have a motorcycle.
Yes.
Things happen.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Somebody's going to have to put their finger in my butt at some point and check my prostate, and it's not going to be you.
You actually have to go to a doctor to do that?
Oh, that's true.
You haven't done that
That's
in
never
years.
going to happen. Also, don't put your finger in my butt. My prostate's fine.
Okay. Okay. Anyway.
That's a blanket statement to anybody listening. Don't put your finger in my butt.
All right. Can we move on?
I guess so. I don't even know what we're talking about at this point.
7 guards come in, carrying a guy who's throwing himself around. They pin him in front of the king. He's got tattoos on like his neck and his hands, but they're kind of moving. They're magic tattoos.
Magic tattoos. Why do these fairies always have magic tattoos?
Because, I mean, tattoos are cool, and then if they're magic, they're extra cool.
Where's the magic tattoo shop?
I don't know. And you learn some of how they get a lot of the tattoos. Later.
Yeah, the one guy got that tattoo on his face to say he was a slave. I don't know. That was weird.
What?
The one guy, he had the tattoo, the thing on his head.
Hunt from Crescent City, yes.
Yeah. Oh, man, that one was a rough one to get through.
Okay. Ceres recognizes the guy on the floor as who she thought was Death.
Right.
So
the guy
she's-
who took her in the pool of metal.
Yes. People start mumbling his name.
Was the metal hot?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's a side question.
Okay. Not hot.
Okay.
His name is Kingfisher.
Okay. Silly name.
I knew you were going to think that.
There's a movie called The Kingfisher. I think it's got Robin Williams in it.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know. I know I had to watch it when I was in high school. In my art class, of all things. I don't remember anything about it other than we had to watch a movie called The Kingfisher.
Okay. Anyway, people are kind of afraid of him. The king calls him the Scourge of Yvelia. Says he returned even though his exile isn't over. And when people start yelling, they're saying, like, kill him, get rid of him, cut his head off.
Burn the witch!
Okay. Everlane starts talking to an old woman who's sitting near the king and begs for her to help. The old lady stands up and says the sword is giving her a prophecy. The king says he'll listen in private, and so she grabs him and says Kingfisher won't die by his hand and tells him to return the pendant. Someone yells that they should send him back to the war front, and it was Renfus. Says he came back to claim the only thing that will help them win, because they're fighting this war. It would save the king from having a trial, because he'll probably die in the war anyway.
Do we know who they're fighting a war against?
Not yet.
Okay.
The king says Kingfisher can go with him in a week. Kingfisher knows about Quicksilver, so he's going to have to help Ceres. The king throws his little pendant necklace, the thing that Renfris took from Saris. And then Renfris puts it on Kingfisher, and Kingfisher like immediately starts calming down. He's shaking a little bit. Renfris helps him leave the room. Everlane and Saris leave next. They
And
find
the king just keeps sitting because that's all he does.
Yeah, that's all he does.
Says, "Oh, I'll just be here in my chair in case anybody needs anything."
Next to this dragon skull.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're gonna sit in a chair all day, surround yourself with some cool shit. Get
Yeah.
a dragon skull.
Okay. They find Renfris and Kingfisher. Kingfisher is like trying to pull himself together. He's thrown up at this point. He's a mess.
Barf.
Yeah. Everlane asks Kingfisher why he went through the pool. He says he only had 2 seconds to decide, so he just did it. Everlane says they should all go to bed. Tells Saris that the Fae are always at war with each other. So, they are somehow fighting other Fae.
Okay. That's all we know.
That's all we know at this point.
Oh, at this point, it's not just left there.
No.
We'll find out more later.
It is, in fact, a whole book, Justin.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to explain what the war is about.
Yes.
You talk about a war, I'm a little curious what's going on.
We'll get there.
Okay.
The next day, Everlane takes Saris to the library. She meets the librarian, whose name is Rusarius.
There's always a library. Every book has a library.
I like libraries.
I know.
He calls Saris an alchemist. Everlane says Kingfisher found her holding a sword, and the sword's name is Solace. They named their swords there.
Silly.
Okay.
Dude, when you hold it up, do you go, "I have the power"?
This is not
And then you turn into
He-Man.
He-Man.
No.
Oh.
Okay.
And then you turn your cat into a giant
cat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
giant cat. Battle cat. And you
Okay.
can ride it.
No.
Also, why does he have a pet tiger? It's crazy.
I don't know. That was a weird cartoon.
It's the best cartoon. It's so good.
Makes no sense. Anyway. Kingfisher comes out from the shelves. Says Saris must have some Fey blood in her, and that's why she's an alchemist. That's why she was able to open the pool. She can't be fully human.
She's a weird half-breed.
Okay.
That's also a really common thread in these books, is that there's always a halfer.
A halfer. Okay.
That's probably racist. I don't know, but that's just the word for it.
Okay. Saris sees the big sword that's strapped on his back, and Kingfisher tells her it's rude to stare at a guy's hardware. And then she
Is he
says...
talking about dicks?
Yeah, there's a little bit of innuendo going on there.
Yeah, he's talking about dicks.
She says it looks like a toothpick, so still kind of talking about dicks.
You tiny little pecker.
And then Renfris comes in. Everlane tells Saris to read a history book. Saris says she doesn't care about history, she just wants to open the portal and find her brother. Everlane says it's complicated. Kingfisher is like, well, actually, your brother might be alive. Madra probably conscripted everyone because she thinks Belican, this other king, is going to come after her. So there's a chance that Hayden is still alive, that she has not burned the third ward. Everlane says Kingfisher shouldn't have given Saris his pendant. He said he was still wearing, he's got like a special ring. He was still wearing the ring, so he was like, I was going to be fine. I got the sword. I even got a new pet for you, which is what he's calling Saris right now.
Oh.
One capable of performing fancy magic tricks that'll make all of our lives better. So he's a dick.
Look at her, she does tricks.
Yeah. He has 2 questions for Saris. Has she channeled a metal's energy before? And can she work in a forge? That's what she did with Elroy, so she's like, yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah, I melt down catalytic converters for a living, idiot.
Okay.
I'm from Florida. Obviously, I know how to do that.
Okay. They all walk toward the forge. Renfris says alchemists didn't write anything down, so alchemists used to be pretty common, but somehow they all kind of went extinct.
They just disappeared.
Yeah.
They're like the dinosaurs. They're just gone one day. We just woke up one day, all of them were gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people with like a very particular magical ability, and somehow it just kind of died out.
Okay. They probably should have had more sex instead of just doing the alchemy all day.
Okay.
Could have passed it along.
Okay.
Full sex. Continue.
All right. Everlane says Saris needs to learn about Avelia, so Everlane wants her to like stay in the library and read the books. Kingfisher calls Saris Oshellith. Says she's the only human in Avelia, and their ancestors were cursed to be like vampires, and that's why they have the teeth. He says it's their dirty little secret. They don't talk about it. It's very taboo to talk about it.
You don't bring up Your vampire teeth?
You don't bring up your vampire teeth. You don't bring up the fact that there used to be, like, this blood curse that meant that they had to drink blood. They don't have
bite,
to anymore.
Don't bite people. It's rude.
Yeah. Everlane calls him an asshole and says sometimes she wishes he wasn't her brother. And then she runs off. And Renfist follows her. So Kingfisher and Everlane are related.
Right.
Ceres goes with Kingfisher because she's decided she wants to work in the forge and not read the books.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I don't want to read books either.
And then she asks him what Oshellith means. And Oshellith is a type of butterfly, Osha for short. They hatch, live, and die all in one day. So he's basically like still making fun of her, like, you're human, you're basically gonna die in 3 seconds.
Also, OSHA for short. OSHA is the government agency that
Yes.
makes sure you have safe working conditions.
Yes.
That also gets paid off by big companies to not look at things.
Okay,
Been
yeah.
there, done that. Worked in those places. Didn't know that OSHA takes checks on the side. Typical government, crooked.
Okay. Kingfisher kicks in the door to the forge. A window is broken, plants are growing all over the place. The tools are rusty. Ceres asks him if he can do magic to clean it up. He says he's not a witch. Fey magic is a sacred gift, and he's not going to use it just to clean stuff.
I don't use my magic for useful things.
So then she asks about his pendant. He says he has to start at the beginning. Tells her Quicksilver pools connect different realms, so there's more than one. But Quicksilver is volatile. If it touches bare skin, it can cause problems. It can make people, like, insane.
Okay.
The guard Heron had a Quicksilver dagger. That's why it melted, and she was able to kind of control it and make it, like, climb up inside him.
All right. It's weird to make a dagger from that. Doesn't seem like a very effective dagger.
Well, it was not pure Quicksilver, so there was probably other stuff in it, and it was just kind of melded together.
Okay.
He says his mother gave him the pendant when he was 11 to help him go through portals. There was one time he had to go through without it, and that's why his eye is silver. Because it's like he's got Quicksilver trapped in his eye.
I got it stuck in my eye.
He got it stuck in his eye.
He got pink eye.
He got silver eye.
Silver eye. Whatever.
Okay.
It's probably not as itchy. Doesn't get all pussy.
No. Oh.
God, pink eye's the fucking worst.
Gross. So gross.
Hate it. Used to get it when I worked at... I'm not going to say where I used to work, but I used to work in a place that was really dirty. And everybody would get pink eye. It was disgusting. It was awful. One of the guys I worked with got pink eye in both eyes at the same time. Awful. You know him. He's one of my good friends. He was at our wedding. You know who I'm talking about. He had pink eye in both eyes. Yeah.
That's
If you catch it early, it's not terribly bad, and you can, like, it got to a point where I knew the symptoms. I knew that I was getting it, and I just kept the drops in the house all the time. It's disgusting.
Okay.
Dirty jobs.
Okay. If he's not wearing the pendant kind of keeps the Quicksilver in his eye under control. Without it, he loses his fucking mind. He just goes nuts.
It just swirls around in there.
Yes.
Gets in his brain.
He basically, yeah.
Like RFK's brainworms.
Yeah.
Starts eating holes
He
in his
basically
brain.
gets brainworms.
He's got brainworms. Oh, RFK, you were almost crazy enough to be our president. Not
Don't
quite.
say that.
Not quite. We got 2 ones that out crazied you. Continue. Politics is a mess. What's wrong with our country? It's crazy. We're all crazy.
Okay. Not talking about that right now, Justin.
We're just on a train that's on fire, hurling towards one of those bridges that's not finished being built yet. And we got 2 wacky people fighting over who's going to be in charge of the train.
One of them is a lot wackier than the other.
They're both pretty wacky. The one with the brainworms is like, I'm done.
Okay. Let's get back on topic here.
Okay. Whatever that topic may be.
She asks why he gave her the pendant and didn't leave her to die. He says Mater used the sword to close all the portals, cut them off from supplies they need to win this war. And Ceres is the only living alchemist that they know of. So he brought her back because he knew immediately that she's an alchemist. They need her help. They spend hours cleaning out the forge, and then Renfist comes in.
Why didn't he just use his magic? He wasted all that time.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
He asks why she hasn't started working, and then Kingfisher uses shadows, makes the room pitch black. When the shadows leave, everything is clean and fixed. And Ceres gets mad at him And he's like, I just wanted to see if you knew what hard work was. So he's just fucking with her.
All right. That's fair.
I knew you.
Yeah, I mean,
you can relate.
I can relate to that as being a manager for quite some time, being in charge of people. Sometimes you just want to see if they can get the job done.
Okay. The next day, Saris and Everlane go to the library. The librarian is yelling at Kingfisher for eating in there. Renfus is also there.
You can't eat in the library?
That's a general rule for libraries.
Oh.
Look, you're not supposed to
I don't
bring
hang out
food
in
or drinks.
libraries.
Okay.
I can understand you don't. Yeah, I guess you don't want drinks, people spilling it on the books.
Yeah, you just don't want to get the books dirty.
Sometimes I just want a snack.
Okay. Not in the library.
I'm pretty sure our kid's taking goldfish crackers into the library.
I'm pretty sure she has also. We're not going to talk about that right now.
Breaking the law. Breaking the law.
Kingfisher gets up and says he's going to wait in the forge for Saris, and then he leaves. And Renfus says Kingfisher hasn't been there in 110 years. He has nowhere to eat or sleep. He doesn't have a room in the palace right now.
He's homeless.
He's basically homeless. And when he goes to find him, Everlane says they're going to start by reading about alchemists. There used to be 3 kinds of alchemists. Saris is the kind that can transmute metals. But no one knows exactly how they use Quicksilver because I didn't write anything down.
We just didn't keep any kind of records. Our bad.
This is a detail that gets looked over in a lot of fantasy books. So I like that she actually pointed this out and provided an explanation. Saris asks why she can read the books and understand their language. Everlane says the Fae brought their language to the places they visited. Saris asks how Queen Madra has lived for 1,000 years if she's human. Everlane says they don't know, but it must be magic. And she tells her the Fae who went there got trapped. And that's how Saris probably has Fae blood.
Okay. It is always convenient that,
they understand each other.
Yeah, or the aliens always speak English.
Yeah.
And they always land in America.
At least there's a little bit of an explanation here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we went there, you picked up language from us.
Yeah.
Everlane says she's more than 1,400 years old.
God, that's an old bitch.
Kingfisher is...
She's almost as old as Joe Biden. Oh, that's good. Continue. That's funny. That's funny. I can see it on your face. You know it's funny. You just don't want to laugh. It's funny.
All right.
I'm funny. That's why I'm here. Here for the funny.
Okay. You made your point. Kingfisher is 1,733 years old. And she says that the Fae who were trapped in, the place that Saris is from, they're almost definitely all dead now because it's been a very long time. Kingfisher comes back and says he came to fetch the human.
Give me that human.
And then they go back to the forge. Saris says she knows he was banished from Yavelia. The king said he burned a city to the ground. So she asked if he did.
He was playing with matches.
He was not playing with matches, no. We'll find out more about that later. There were no matches.
Okay.
He says yes, and that he didn't have a choice. She asks where he's been for 110 years. He stands right in front of her, real fucking close, says, hell, and then he tells her to hold out her hand. He puts something in her hand and then holds her hands closed. Her hand starts to hurt. Kingfisher won't let go. She says it's cold and it burns. He tells her to make it stop. He tells her to listen, and then she says, fuck you. And then he calls her a needy little bitch in heat.
I kind of like this guy. He's a real jabroni, though.
She eventually stops screaming and then hears a voice, and it's saying, Anarath Moor, which is another language, so.
One that she doesn't understand.
Apparently. And that she doesn't understand.
She didn't get the...
There's an old Fae language.
She didn't get the software update on that one.
No. She yells it at him, and then he lets her open her hand. There's liquid Quicksilver in her hand now. So the thing he put in her hand was solid Quicksilver. She got it to go to liquid.
She melted it.
And he tells her to make it solid again, and then she does. He says he thought that would go differently, and then she punches him in the mouth. And then later on, Everlane is helping her put on a dress and says she shouldn't have punched Kingfisher. And then we find out that after she punched him, he picked her up, threw her in a room, and then called her a bad human.
I'm going to start calling people bad humans now. When I flip somebody off in traffic, I'm just going to be like, bad human.
Everlane says they don't talk about him being her brother. her mother was married to Fisher's father first, so they're half siblings, not full siblings.
Okay.
He went through a portal and got stuck, and then her mother then married the king. The king said Fisher's father closed the portals and named him a traitor. And then the king thinks it's King Fisher's fault. His mother wasn't able to give him a male heir because she died after Everlane was born. Even though that's not how that works.
That's that's not the way biology works. Maybe in the Fae biology.
Okay. Okay. Everlane leaves the room. Kingfisher shows up with a bunch of food and says he'll eat in there since he can't eat in the library. She tells him his...
Why is he always hungry?
I mean, he's a big motherfucker. So the Fae are also, like, they're all super tall, too. Like, Kingfisher is something like about 7 feet tall.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He's played basketball?
I don't... There's no mention of basketball. No.
I'm just saying, like, if you're 7 feet tall, you can be in the NBA pretty much, even if you're not talented.
Okay. Okay. She tells him his lip is bleeding. And then she gets all hot and bothered when she sees his teeth.
His vampire teeth?
His vampire teeth, yes.
She's turned on by his vampire teeth?
Yes.
Is what we're finding out?
Yep.
That's bizarre. That's a weird fetish to have, kids.
It's going to get weirder.
Of course it is. Yeah, this is going to be a weird fuck porn book eventually. I can already tell that's coming.
Yep. Okay. And then he says he can smell her. And then...
yeah, because the bitch hasn't had a bath and she lives in the desert. She smells like hot tuna.
She did have a bath. Remember? She had a bath.
Yeah.
He's saying that he can smell that she's turned on. Because they have, like, really heightened senses.
Also smells like hot tuna.
Okay. And then Everlane comes in the room and says it smells like a brothel.
They're like, Jesus Christ, bitch, put it away. Stinking up the whole room.
Okay.
Hose that thing out.
He does.
Also, he's gonna hose that thing out.
He will eventually, yeah. Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. Gonna be some fucking.
Ceres goes to the library with Everlane and says she wants to learn about Quicksilver, how alchemists use the portals. The librarian says they just focused on where they wanted to go. And the king's Quicksilver pool is under the palace. So there's a pool under the palace. It's probably the one she came through, honestly. And that, like, there's no real set way to use the portals. You just have to think about where you want to go. So she goes back to the forge. Kingfisher is already there. He accuses her of eye-fucking him, and then she says she wasn't. He says, it's always confounded me. Humans aren't restricted by the same laws as oath-bound fae. You creatures can lie whenever you want. You do it all of the time, and yet you're all so fucking bad at it.
Oh wait, so are these the same rules apply in this book that they're not allowed to lie? Is that a thing?
So it's like they have to make like an oath, and if they make that oath, then they're unable to lie.
Okay.
So it's the same, but it's a little bit different.
All right.
That's why he says oath-bound fae.
Who are they making an oath to?
I don't remember.
Okay. I mean, at least you didn't just make it up.
I did not make it up. You're welcome.
You could have just made it up and been like, "Oh, it's one of the gods," and I'd have been like, "Oh, whatever."
Okay. I mean, it might have been. It might have been the king, one of the gods. It might have just been some magic thing. I don't know.
The king's just sitting around waiting for people to come make oaths to him.
He might be.
He's got nothing else to do.
Yeah. He shows her a ground fae bone in the forge. It says he wants her to use it to make a relic like his pendant. So he wants her to make more things like the pendant so that more people can go through the portal and not lose their fucking mind.
Right. Or have their eyes turn into silver.
Okay.
With the brainworms.
That too.
Yeah.
Ceres then freaks out. She points to something next to the fire. Kingfisher says it's a fox. It's a white fox. She's never seen a fox before. They don't have those in the desert where she's from.
Right. And they don't have, like, the internet, so she hasn't seen pictures of
Correct.
foxes before.
Correct.
Like, what is that weird little furry shit?
Yeah.
Got it.
Ceres tells him not to kill it, but then it bites her. So she asks for help. Kingfisher is like, no, I think this is a good learning experience for you. The fox eventually lets go and then hides under her dress. He uses his magic to move the fox and put it in a cage, and then he tells her to release it outside. And then uses magic again to, like, fix her dress. They spend 3 hours trying to make a relic. Kingfisher has his shirt off. There are tattoos all over his back. Ceres says she wants to hold his pendant. He says he can't take it off, so she'll have to come to him. So he sits down, because he's also real fucking tall.
Yeah.
She walks up to look at the pendant. He asks what she knows about Fae anatomy. And she's like, not shit. He says their hearts are calm. Hers is freaking out like a hummingbird. He says he slept with a lot of humans. She should kiss him to sate her curiosity because, like, he's like, I know you want to. Let's just get this over with.
What do you know about Fae anatomy? We've got 2 dicks.
No,
Like
no.
a shark.
No.
Sharks also have 2 dicks.
Okay. So she does. They make out for a while. She jumps away from him and says she doesn't want to be around him. He wants Renfus to come and take her to her room. So he leaves to go get Renfus. And then Saris bolts and she starts running through the castle. She's got a bag. The fox is inside the bag now. She's running to go find the Quicksilver pool. She can kind of hear it whispering to her, because that's the thing. She's an alchemist. She can hear the Quicksilver talking to her.
Right. That explains why she could hear the glove earlier.
Yes, there must have been Quicksilver in the glove. It's telling her where to go, so she does find it. She lets the fox out, and then it runs off. She touches the Quicksilver, tells it to wake up, and then it turns to liquid. She starts to put her foot in, and then gets knocked over by Kingfisher. He drags her by her ankle and puts his sword at her throat. And she says she's going home. He calls her a thief, points out that she's wearing his ring, because remember, he had the necklace, and then he said he had this special ring too.
Right.
Tells her it wouldn't have kept her safe. She says she won't stop trying. She needs to find her brother. And then he's like, all right, fine, I'll make you a deal. I will go get one person. She has to agree to whatever he says, and then to forge new relics and anything else he needs. She tells him to get Hayden, so he cuts his hand and says they need to seal their bargain in blood. So she cuts her hand, and then they like shake on it.
Always gross.
Yeah.
That's how you get the AIDS. Or at least hepatitis, something.
Okay.
It's not sanitary.
No, it's not. He says he's going to use her blood to find Hayden because he can like smell her blood now that he's got it on his hand. Tells her to close the portal after he goes in and then open it an hour later. Because if one of them is open, all of them are open. And he says feeders might come through.
Feeders?
She's like, what's that? No time. And then he jumps in the portal.
Got time to explain that to you.
So he steps in, and then the fox comes running back to Saris. She names the fox Onyx.
That's a stupid name for a white fox.
Well,
Contradictory.
okay. You're contradictory.
Onyx is black. It's a white fox.
I'm aware of what the word onyx means. Okay. Kingfisher comes through, drops a guy on the floor, and then collapses. She yells at him because it's not Hayden. He grabbed Carry-On, the guy that she slept with the one time.
Oh, the ginger.
The ginger.
Nobody
yeah.
wants that.
Kingfisher is like, and he says he smelled like her. And he said his name was Hayden when Kingfisher asked. And he reminds her that the portal is in Madra's palace. He had to fight off a ton of guards. And then he stands up and throws Carry-On over his shoulder, because Carry-On's knocked out at this point, and says they need to find Renfus and get the fuck out of there. They walk through the palace. Kingfisher tells her to stop and stay quiet. And then she realizes she basically cannot move or speak, because she made like a magical bargain with him, saying that she has to listen to him. So this is the effect of that bargain.
Right.
He comes back and says he left Renfus a note. They go out to a stable. Sarah says she doesn't like horses. And then he reminds her that she made a blood oath.
Because they got big long faces and metal feet.
Yeah, sure. She says she agreed to help Yvelia. He tells her that's not specifically what she said. She agreed to help him, to help Kingfisher, and to do what he says. I taught you a valuable lesson that will serve you well for the rest of your very short human life in this realm. Always pay attention to the fine print. He tells her to get on the horse. Renfus will find them at their meeting place, and then she grabs her bag. Still got the fox in it. Carrion is slung over the back of Kingfisher's horse, still knocked out. They start riding through the forest. Kingfisher says he knew she took his ring. He saw that she had a bag, so he knew like she was planning something.
You're up to no good.
They go to a rundown tavern and go inside.
People spend a lot of time in taverns. They do a lot of drinking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's anything like a typical medieval world, it's probably safer than drinking the water.
And they've got nothing else to do.
Got nothing else to do. He says...
Other than go on magical quests.
Yes.
That's pretty standard.
Yeah. He says he's taking her to the place where he was born. It's called Kalish, and it's a war zone. So,
He was born in a war zone, or it's become a war zone?
It's become a war zone.
1,700 years ago.
Yes.
I imagine the place where I was born probably won't exist in 1,700 years.
I mean, who knows? We've got much better records than people did 1,700 years before this. So, because like London has been called London for, I mean, since the Romans, basically.
All right.
Okay, good talk. Renfish shows up a couple hours later and tells Kingfisher he's officially fucked. Evelina's pissed at him. Kingfisher says Saris forced his hand, and the king can't have his sword, or the sword that Saris used, because Salus, the sword, actually was Kingfisher's dad's sword. People around them start whispering. They recognize Kingfisher.
Yeah, because he's 7 foot tall and covered in tattoos.
Well, I mean, they're all 7 feet tall.
Okay, so he's the only one walking around with a 5'2" human.
Okay. Renfish says they need to go. They start walking towards the door, and then a warrior stands in their way. He asks for Kingfisher's blessing. Others come up to them and talk about Kingfisher fighting and saving villages. He says that person doesn't exist anymore. They go outside. Kingfisher stands in front of a shadow gate. So it's basically a black hole that he can create.
He just makes black holes now.
He just makes black holes now. He commands her to go through it because she's all freaked out about it, so he has to force her through it. She gets to the other side and throws up.
There's a lot of barf in this book.
That's twice now. That's not a lot.
That's 2 times the amount of barf in any other book.
Okay. All right. Renfish says Kingfisher isn't as bad as he seems. He says he used to be kinder, but the Quicksilver inside of him, it makes it difficult for him to think straight. It wears on him. It's exhausting for him, shutting out the voices. It's made him hard.
No, it'll make him hard. And it's going to make him hard.
Not that kind of hard.
Rock hard.
Okay. Damn it. Renfish says the relic isn't helping as much as it used to. Saris then basically passes out. Carrion is standing next to her when she wakes up. She asks him where Hayden is. Carrion says he got him into a different ward, so he's safe, and then asks where the fuck they are. And then Kingfisher walks in the room. Carrion says Saris is infatuated with him, because they slept together the one time.
One time.
So clearly she's in love with you.
Yep.
You douchebag. Kingfisher tells her to come with him. She gives him shit for commanding her, and says she'll go now only if he makes another promise. He says, okay, I swear I will release you and allow you and Carrion to return to Zilverin the moment you have made enough relics for my people. So she makes another bargain with him. Her and Kingfisher walk through the castle and run into a fire sprite who's freaking out about Kingfisher being there. His name is Archer. He works for Kingfisher. He's like a servant in the castle. They go to the forge. Kingfisher opens a trunk full of silver rings. He says there are 800 in this trunk, and then there are 8 more trunks after that. All the rings need to be turned into relics. 15,000 rings total. And then he tells her to get to work.
800 and times 8 is not 15,000.
Well, there might not be 800 in all of them.
Okay, I'm just saying. That's bad math.
But again, if you remember the bargain she just made, I will release you when you've made enough relics.
Yeah.
So she's got to make 15,000 of them before she can go.
Yeah.
It's going to take
She
a
better
while.
get to work.
She tries to experiment with scrap metal, but nothing really happens. So she gives up after a few hours. Renfish shows up and says he gave Fisher hell for the oath and told him to get to know Saris. So they're going to have dinner together. That's going to end well.
Yeah. Also, what do they eat?
Food?
You can't just generic food. Like, they're not having KFC. Like,
No, they're not having KFC.
do they have, like, weird animals they're eating? Are they eating the foxes? What are they eating?
I mean, I think in general, like, the livestock is pretty typical. So, like...
So they don't have, like, wacky animals.
No.
They're not eating, like, dragon meat. And
No. No dragon meat.
I would try dragon meat.
I know, you would. You would try a lot of things.
Well,
We've talked about that.
try it once. I don't know. Do they have the same kind of foods? I'd imagine they have different fruits and vegetables and stuff. It's a different world. They got different things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure she mentions that the food is different there, but it's still food.
They don't go into it.
They don't go into a lot of detail about the food.
Well,
So she goes to the dining room. The table is like 30 feet long.
and they sit at opposite ends of it.
Yeah, actually. Kingfisher's at one end, and she's at the other. They argue about her progress at the forge. She picks up her plate and decides she's just going to sit next to him because she doesn't want to yell at him anymore. He tells her they can't get more silver for experiments because the king won't give them any. And then fire sprites come in, and then they freak out when they see where Ceres is sitting. She says Carrion should go back to Zilberine. And Kingfisher says he smelled like her pheromones. So that's why, part of the reason why Kingfisher thought Carrion was Hayden, because he did smell like Ceres, because they did have sex at one time.
How long ago did that happen, that he still smells like her?
Well, she says it was once, and it was months ago. So I guess it was enough.
That's bizarre. To think that, you fuck somebody and they smell like you for months. Also, she wasn't taking a bath, so that...
And neither was he.
Yeah, that stink probably hangs out with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Windows break, and then these 4 monsters jump in the room. They've got waxy skin and red eye and really big fangs. Kingfisher starts fighting, but 2 of them go for Ceres. They knock her down, and then Kingfisher kills him. She throws up again.
More barf.
He says her wound needs to be scourged because the poison will kill her. He says those were feeders, and that silver kills them. And then he yells for help. So, feeders are basically maniac vampires kind of thing.
Okay.
Ceres has nightmares about feeders. Then she wakes up in a bed, realizes she's in Kingfisher's room. He's sitting in a chair next to her, and he tells her she fought well for a human, because humans are weak and fragile. So,
do they have bigger furniture? Because they're all really tall. You would think they would have higher tables and a bigger bed and bigger chairs. Kind of like what I would imagine a midget's house. They would have to have little furniture.
Okay, but opposite.
But the opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
The same but different.
Okay. I can't be that much bigger because there are humans who are 7 feet tall.
There are, but the world is real inconvenient for a 7 foot tall human. They've got to squat down to get through doors, and they bump their heads on shit all the time.
Okay.
Not that I'm 7 foot tall and I would understand that at all.
No.
I'm just off the shelf size.
Yeah, you're just a regular person.
Standard issue.
She asks why the paintings in the room are all torn up, and then he commands her to stay in bed unless she needs to use the bathroom. And
don't shit my bed.
Don't shit in the bed until she's healed. And then he's going to the war camp for a week. She spends 5 days in that room. Carrion finds her on the last day and says they should have revenge sex in his bed.
Okay.
And then he says that Kingfisher made him take a bath a few days ago because he said Kingfisher didn't like the way he smelled.
Yeah, because he smelled like shit from not having taken a bath in a real long time.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just going to assume if they're not taking baths, they probably don't have a plethora of toilet paper. Dude's got dingleberries for weeks.
Okay.
Got dreads on his butt crack. Gross.
Okay. She goes back to the forge and does more experiments. 8 more days go by. Renfris walks in and says Kingfisher is requesting her presence for dinner. She says she'll go if Renfris goes too. She drags Carrion.
Last time she had dinner with him, a bunch of monsters came in and tried to kill her. So yeah, I'd be a little hesitant to go to dinner too.
She's also mad at Kingfisher for just fucking leaving her there for days at a time.
He had shit to do.
She drags Carrion along too. They all walk in the dining room. The windows.
To clarify, did she fuck him, or was that just a proposition he made?
Who, Carrion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the one time. It's still just the one time.
Yeah, but he came in and said they should have revenge sex. But
no, they did not.
They did not. Okay. We didn't clarify. I got sidetracked.
Carrion just likes to hit on everybody.
Right. He's just out there trying to get his dick wet.
Yeah.
Got it.
All the time. The windows are all fixed. Kingfisher says she's late, so she sits next to him again. They argue about whether or not she should train with Renfris. Ceres gets upset that he compelled her, and then he says he did it for her own good. And then very explicitly flirts with her, to the point where Renfris spits out his drink. Kingfisher says she's going with him to the war camp tomorrow. They use a shadow gate to get there. The camp is on one side of a frozen river. The other side is all burnt trees and shit. Carrion and Ceres train with Renfris. Then Kingfisher shows up. Renfris says they need to talk to the captains. Kingfisher says he needs to talk to the alchemist first. So he's still coming up with fun names for her.
Right.
That aren't her name.
At least he's not just calling her bad human.
Or the pet.
Yeah.
Yeah. They walk to his tent. People see her and mutter about humans. She sees a bookshelf and a pile of books. He says he wants to have dinner without drawing blood. We'll see if they can get through a meal without arguing. She asks why he wants her to be compliant. He says he's responsible for her and he needs her alive to work on relics. Have you paused to consider that I might want to stay alive? That I'd do whatever it is you wanted me to do if you just explained why it was important to my well-being. He says his way is faster, and then she starts yelling, asks why he can't just trust her. Want to guess what happens next?
Well, they didn't make it through another meal, that's for sure.
Well, actually, they start making out.
This is another one of those, like, weird fetish things of, like, I hate you, so let me fuck you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't get it.
I know
Don't
you don't.
get it.
I know you don't. But he jumps away from her after a minute, but then he kisses her again and says he can't trust anything, and then he leaves the tent. Saris then runs out of the tent after him and finds Renfis. He asks if she's okay, then takes her inside the war tent. Carrie-Anne is there, so she sits next to him. He asks why her neck is bleeding. Kingfisher bit her a little bit, which is super taboo. Kingfisher walks in. He's soaking wet, so he must have like jumped in the river so that nobody else could smell Saris on him.
Also, one of his two dicks got hard, so he figured if I get
There's
in this
just
ice
one.
cold river, it'll probably shrivel up a little bit.
There, I can confirm. I've read the book. There's only one. One of the captains starts yelling and saying that Kingfisher abandoned them. Kingfisher says he had no choice. He had to leave. The captain swings her sword at him. Then Saris yells, "Stop," and the sword just fucking shatters. Someone outside starts yelling for icebreakers because they need to break the ice so the feeders can't cross the river. So there are feeders on the other side. Saris and Carrie-Anne see people hitting the ice with sledgehammers. Someone just yells the word vampires and says there are 50,000 of them. So they get hammers and they start helping. A man on the other side of the river yells for Kingfisher and says he misses Kingfisher. So, a little creepy.
Yep.
Saris is back in the war tent. Kingfisher comes in, opens another shadow gate, and pulls her through back to the castle. They end up in his room. He says she was worried about him. She asks about the guy who said that he missed Kingfisher. And Kingfisher says his name is Malcolm. He's one of the first high fae vampires. And he turned down the cure to the curse. So that's the reason there are still vampires, is that they came up with a cure. Some people accepted it, some people didn't. Some people liked being vampires.
Some people got vaccinated, some people didn't.
Yeah. She asks if he was with Malcolm for 110 years. He can't tell her. She realizes he was bound. Says he doesn't hate her as much as he pretends to. And then they start making out.
Again.
And then you find out he's into choking. A little bit.
Well, he's already into biting. We already did that.
Well, I mean, he's kind of also a vampire a little bit. She touches his chest, and one of his tattoos moves from his skin onto hers. So now, since she's got a bird on her forearm,
Okay.
magic tattoos.
All right.
And then afterward, he says he wants her to stay in the castle, and he'll come back for her in the morning. And then he leaves. She goes through a shadow gate in the morning, asks him about the tattoo that's now on her neck, because it's moved from her arm to her neck.
Are people going to notice this?
Yep. Well, actually, she tells him to take it back, and then he tells her to ignore it. And then he does like a magic thing to kind of hide it. And then he says she needs to see the healer so she can take something, so she doesn't get pregnant.
Oh, so they fully fucked.
Yeah. They did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I thought they just made out and then the tattoo thing and then they stopped.
No, I said they started having sex.
I don't think you did. I missed that.
I think you're not paying attention.
Well, that could be possible.
Okay.
So she basically needs to go take a plan B.
Yes.
A morning after pill.
Yeah. But then she starts laughing and saying that she can't have kids because Madra sterilized 7 out of 10 girls in the 3rd ward. So she was sterilized.
So you can come
by
all
the
up in me
government.
all you want.
Yeah. He gets upset and tells her to find the forge and get to work. And then when she gets there, Carrie-Anne is waiting for her. And she asks why he's okay with everything because shit's fucking nuts. And he says his grandmother told him about the Fae. And that she has a book with illustrations. So he like remembers some of the pictures. He recognizes some stuff.
Also, he's an idiot, so he's just like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
Whatever. I took a bath for the first time in ages, so like,
Yeah.
this place ain't bad.
Yeah. She asks for Carrie-Ann's help, and then they start doing experiments. Kingfisher walks in and gets upset with Carrie-Ann because Carrie-Ann calls Ceres Sunshine, and he says, you have no idea what she is, what she could be. You should call her Majesty. Kingfisher says he needs her for something, so they go back to the war tent. Renfist says the pieces of the sword that Ceres shattered are stuck. It was a magic heirloom sword, so it's a big deal to not have that all of a sudden.
Okay.
The captain is there. She's mad at Ceres.
You broke my sword.
Yeah. Ceres realizes the sword had Quicksilver in it. Kingfisher says most metal objects have some Quicksilver. And then Renfist is like, they have 12 months to win this war, or they're all gonna die. Ceres starts having a panic attack. And then one of the captains, whose name is Lorth, says Kingfisher went back to the castle to see the healer. And Ceres is like, okay, that's great. I need a drink. So he takes her to a tavern. She says Kingfisher has been lying to her. And he's like, well, he can't do that. He's oath-bound. When we turn 21, we kneel before the Farron stone and make our decision. Every one of us, we have a choice. Bleed on the stone and make our vow to always be truthful. So that's, see, I wrote it down.
There you go. There's the oath. It's not to the king. It's to a rock.
Yeah. Anyway, he says the other option is to be lawless. Lawless Fae have no honor. And she asks him about the teeth. He says that's not polite conversation. He says Fae can still drink blood, but it's
Bitches don't
considered,
talk about that.
it's considered scandalous, and it's usually a sex thing.
Okay. That's for freaks and weirdos.
Yeah. She asks how he ended up fighting in the war. He says he was a singer. Kingfisher found him nearly dead after being attacked by vampires. Kingfisher saved him by giving him part of his soul. Some kind of magic thing.
You can just hand out pieces of soul.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, Harry Potter did it as a Horcrux, but
Okay.
okay.
Just slice off a piece.
Yep.
Break me off a piece of that soul.
Yeah. Fancy feast.
Hair for man. Football cream. All right, if you're an Office fan, you got all those references. If you're not, go watch The Office. Why are you still here?
Yep. Worth says if he dies first, Kingfisher will get his piece of soul back. If Kingfisher dies first, he would be stuck in limbo until Lorth dies. But Lorth says he'll kill himself first to make sure that doesn't happen. Kingfisher takes her back to the castle. She's all drunk because she's been drinking for hours at this point.
She got hammered.
And then she doesn't see him for 2 more days.
Oh, I thought they were going to have sloppy drunk sex.
No.
Seemed like where we were going.
They were basically both avoiding the conversation of what happened.
Okay.
And then he comes in her room 2 days later and says he's going to see the healer, and then afterward he'll take her somewhere else.
He goes to the healer a lot.
Yes.
Is that going to make sense later?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. He comes back with a bag for her and tells her she can bring Onyx, her little fox.
Yeah.
They go through another shadow gate and come out at a festival. Kingfisher says they're in a village called Ballard, celebrating the longest night of the year. They have something he needs. They sit in front of a fire. Kingfisher says he's going to start helping her make relics. He asks why she never brought up the other night. And she says he made it clear it was a one-time thing. She's not going to convince him otherwise. So she's basically like, I'm not stupid, and I'm not, like,
I get it. It was a hit it and forget
desperate.
it kind of thing.
Yeah, like, an old lady comes up to them. She's all excited to see Kingfisher. She says she made food for them, and she already knows who Ceres is. And she can tell that they've slept together. They go to this lady's tavern. Ceres hears Quicksilver, and it's saying that thing again, Anarathmore, and, like, to the point where she jumps up from the table and yells it, and then knocks over her plate. So Kingfisher takes her back to the castle. He asks why she said that, and she says she doesn't know, and then asks what it means. And he says it's better if she doesn't know. They walk to a fountain with a statue of Kingfisher's mother. They go inside a different castle. There are paintings all along the wall, but they're all covered up. And then he tells her goodnight, and then he leaves.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye. Good time. Ceres wakes up later hearing screaming, so she runs to Kingfisher's room. He's shaking and sweating. His eyes are open. So basically, like, the Quicksilver is fucking with his head right now.
Right. His brain worms are having
Yeah.
a meal.
Okay. So she gets in the bed with him and holds his head in her lap. It takes 4 hours for him to stop shaking. She sees more tattoos move from his skin to hers. And then he asks to hear about her life before all of this. She says her dad died when she was 2. Her mom became a prostitute to support them.
Slutting around.
Well, not like they had a whole lot of options.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's the trade of the day, you know.
Okay.
They call it the world's oldest profession for a reason.
Yeah. Most of her clients were Madra's guards. She would smuggle metal for Elroy, the guy she worked for, to make into weapons. And the guards killed her when they found a weapon on her. And her house was the first one quarantined after that. So there is no plague going through the third ward. It was all bullshit.
Right.
She lays down next to him, and then he says his mother was killed too. She wakes up later. They start having sex again. He chokes her again, because he's into that.
That's a red flag for anybody out there. Somebody's choking you during sex, they're probably abusive. You're going to end up with a black eye in that relationship.
Not always.
You're probably going to.
Okay.
That's not a good thing.
Okay.
He wants to hit you.
All right, calm
Which
down.
it makes sense because these two didn't like each other. And somehow they're fucking because of that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Don't fuck people you don't like, and then they probably won't slap you around a little bit.
Okay. You done?
All right.
She realizes that she can hear him in her head and vice versa. So now they can telepathically communicate with each other.
All right, that's a thing.
And then he bites her.
Of course.
Because it's a sex thing.
Because he's a weirdo. He's into weird sex stuff. He's also a furry, but we don't talk about that.
Okay. How is he a furry?
I don't know. I just assume. He's into weird sex stuff. He's probably a furry on the side. They just didn't write it into the book. I'm taking some
Liberties?
liberties, yeah.
Okay. That's a weird liberty to take.
Well,
I don't know how you connected those dots.
he's a furry. Wears a fursuit. Sometimes they fuck with it.
All right.
He goes to furry conventions.
Okay. She wakes up later by herself, leaves the room and finds Kingfisher sitting in front of a window. She sits next to him and sees the runes tattooed now on her fingers, also her hands and her arms. She asks him what they mean. He says some are alchemist words, and there's one that he can't tell her about yet. He uses magic to hide them all and says she has a month to decide if she wants to keep them. And then he apologizes for biting her.
Whoopsies.
Sorry. She goes back to the forge. Carrion comes in and she tells him she can't make relics. The Quicksilver laughs at her when she tries. He says she should ask. And she's like, all right, I guess I've tried everything else, so we'll ask. They go back to the war tent. She hears the shards of the sword. The Quicksilver tells her it wants music. She tells it it'll have someone sing for it if she can reforge it. And it's like it's a song for it to keep. So she asks for the new sword to have magic. The Quicksilver says it will bear witness to the blood, then decide if it's going to have magic. So the Quicksilver's kind of sentient.
Okay.
She can have conversations.
And it wants somebody to sing it a song.
Yes.
Is it forced gender reassignment by cattle decapitation?
No.
That'd be the song that I would probably pick.
All right. Lorth comes in and uses his magic to gather the pieces. She asks if he can do like a wood carving. Cyrus works in the forge. Lorth brings in his carving for like I think they call it a pommel, the thing that you hold, the part that you hold onto.
I don't know. I'm not into forging,
Okay.
as it turns out. Not a hobby of mine.
Kingfisher watches her work for a while, and Lorth asks to hold the sword, but after it's finished. But while he's holding it, he cuts his finger. And then the Quicksilver starts talking to her again and says it wants a song. They go outside. They see the aurora. They're going off for the... Kingfisher says it's the first time in 1,000 years, so it's a big deal. Lorth starts singing, and then the Quicksilver says it made a decision. Lorth was the first one to bleed on the sword, so the sword is his now. The Quicksilver tells Lorth to name it, so now Lorth can hear the sword too. He names it Redemption's Dawn, and then it has white light coming out of it, which Kingfisher calls Angel's Breath. So then Cyrus goes to Kingfisher's tent. He helps her get in a bath because she's been working in forge all day and she's real gross now.
She's all hot and sweaty.
All hot and sweaty, and says he has to talk to Renfus. She wakes up when he carries her into bed, falls asleep again. wakes up later next to Kingfisher and starts talking to the Quicksilver in his eye, asks it to leave him. It says it can't. We are him. We are one thing, one weapon. We gave him his life, a boy, just a boy. He was young when he entered our pool. He should not have survived it. But he was strong, and the grand halls of the universe rang aloud with his purpose. We permitted him to live so that he might fulfill that purpose. We bound ourselves to him so that he might survive. Kingfisher wakes up and says he heard the Quicksilver talking to her. That's gotta be fucking weird.
Yeah. I'm trying to have a goddamn nap and you guys won't shut the fuck up.
He was waiting for her to try and take it out. And then Renfus runs in and says he needs Kingfisher because the horde is at the river again. More feeders, more vampires. Sarah says, I'm not going to stay in the tent, so Kingfisher agrees as long as she swears to listen if he tells her to run. He pulls out Solace, which is the sword that she got out of the pool.
Yeah.
And gives it to her. They go outside, and it's raining. There are vampires on the other side of the river. Kingfisher says Malcolm isn't there, but there are vampires trying to cross the ice. So Renfus and Kingfisher start breaking the ice. Someone sees a vampire climbing out of the water, which they're not supposed to be able to do. Her and Renfus fight them off. She sees white light in the distance because Lorth is using his new fancy sword. Someone yells for Kingfisher, and they see Everlane on the other side of the river. There's a guy standing behind her. He says his father will add Everlane to his collection. Malcolm bit Everlane, which is bad.
Yeah. She's a vampire now.
She is a vampire. Kingfisher asks why... I hate this name so much. Teladius? Why he brought Everlane. Teladius says Malcolm wants to break Kingfisher's will. You will either come and try to save her, even though doing so would be futile, or else you'll come for vengeance's sake. Teladius says Malcolm is waiting where they made their last deal. And also that Malcolm wants the alchemist. So, Ceres.
Right.
They go back to the war tent. Lorth is freaking out. Kingfisher is sitting in silence. Renfus says Everlane is enthralled. So she's on this kind of magic thing where she's bound to Malcolm and devoted to his needs. The captain comes in, the one who had the sword initially. And then she punches Lorth in the face.
That's not her sword anymore.
Well, no. She says he took her sword. And then she grabs it, but then her hand gets blown off because the sword is not hers anymore.
Now you got no hand either.
Kingfisher says they're all going back to his castle. Says they need to do something first now that Ceres is a blooded warrior. So they've got this whole ritual that they do, like when someone fights in a war for the first time and survives.
It probably involves them fucking.
No. They each take turns like kneeling in front of her. Kingfisher is the last one to do it, and then he uses her name for the first time. He has never called her Ceres before. It's always Osha, or the human, or the alchemist.
Right.
They go through a shadow gate, end up in the dining room. Ceres sits in her usual spot right next to Kingfisher. The captain gives her shit for it and says that seat is meant for the lady of the house. So basically the person who marries Kingfisher.
Yeah.
And then Renfus tells her to shut the fuck up. Kingfisher says Ceres should get started on the relics. So she and Carrion go to the forge. The Quicksilver asks for a secret, and she tells it she doesn't want to go back to Zoberin. She wants to bring Hayden and Elroy to Yavalia instead. And then she makes a new relic. So every time she makes a relic, the Quicksilver asks for something in return. It's going to be different every time.
Okay.
Probably. The healer that Kingfisher has been seeing comes in. Her name is Tilina. Carrion hits on her, because that's what he does.
Right. Gingers.
Okay. She says she's married. And then Ceres asks about the tattoos all over her hands. Tilana says it's a Fae custom to tattoo blessings on themselves after they're married. Ceres asks if they just show up after sex because that's what happened to her.
Yeah.
Tilana says no, but it used to happen when true mating bonds existed. Ceres asks if people get any on their wrists. And she says you only see that kind of thing in a god binding, a blessing from the gods themselves. But then she says god bindings always end in tragedy. Like, the few records they have, like, somebody always dies.
Right.
So she runs to Kingfisher's room and asks why it took him so long to say her name. And then she's like, I just talked to Tilana about the tattoos. Guess what I learned? Kingfisher says he hated that she represented his own weakness. He's known for centuries that she was coming. He says Osheleth means, one, it's the name of a butterfly. It also means most sacred. He called her that because he was afraid to say her name. His mother was an oracle. She wrote about Saris, drew her almost perfectly, but all her drawings had Saris with pointed ears, as a fae. And he recognized her immediately when he saw her in Mother's palace. So that's also why he brought her back. He says the pendant will stop working soon. He won't accept the bond before he dies. And that's what he's been reading about. There's a waiting period that started a few days ago. He says everything will go back to normal and she can go back to Zilverin. And Saris gets upset that he's making decisions on her behalf. He says he'll kill himself before he goes mad. Then she leaves and says she's going to research how to save him and Everlane. Saris is in the library the next day. Worth says witches have been gone for 1,000 years, but they need one to break the enthrallment to help Everlane. Kingfisher says he knows where the witches are. Him and Renfris will go talk to them. The cranky captain says she's going to go too. They did fix her hand, by the way.
How did they fix a hand that got blown off?
I think they gave her like a new one, like a metal hand.
Okay.
So
Did they forge a metal hand?
they might have.
All right. She
So-
got Luke Skywalkered.
Yeah.
Fresh new hand.
Yeah, fresh new hand. Renfris comes back.
She could have got a hook.
Okay.
Hook would be cool.
Not everybody's a pirate, Justin.
But I mean, I think given the option, if I lost a hand, and I could get like a weird, like solid hand-looking thing or a cool hook, I'd probably go cool hook.
All right.
Also, I would tell everybody that it was from a shark attack.
Okay.
Just because it sounds cool. And nobody's going to question it. If you lose a limb and you're like, shark attack, they'll be like, oh my god, that's awesome.
Okay.
Shark attack.
Renfris comes back in the library a few hours later and says the captain offended the witches because she's just mad about everything now.
Just a cranky bitch.
Kingfisher stayed to smooth things over with the one witch who can help them. And then Kingfisher comes back with the witch a couple hours later. Says they'll rescue Everlane tomorrow night. Saris is getting ready to sleep, but Kingfisher comes in and says they'll rescue Everlane and then worry about him. So he's decided he's not going to give up. He's not going to kill himself before he goes mad to figure something out. He uses a shadow gate to take them back to the other house.
There's a lot of scene changes, just bouncing back and forth between
Well,
places.
the shadow gates do that.
There's a lot of that in this book.
They start having sex again.
Of course they do.
She feels more tattoos showing up on her back. He gets new tattoos on his neck and collarbone. They spend 3 hours having sex.
That's a long time.
That is a long time, yeah.
Like, is that nonstop action or is there breaks in between? What's going on?
I think there are breaks in between.
I would hope so.
She asks why he got new tattoos. And then he says it happens sometimes when one person accepts the bonds. And then he tells her he's in love with her. Saris wakes up in bed later, realizes that Kingfisher isn't there. She finds a shadow gate in the living room, and he left a note. It says the gate will take her back to the castle. He'll send Everlane as soon as he can. And that he's releasing her from her oath. So basically, Kingfisher is going on a suicide mission to rescue Everlane without everybody else. She goes through the gate, goes to the library, shows Renfris the note. Carrion asks how long the gate stays open, suggests they use it to get to Kingfisher after he sends Everlane through. And then also tells Saris that he wants a fancy sword before they go anywhere.
Let me get one of them fancy swords. You make it for everybody.
Yeah. She makes a sword for him, and the Quicksilver says it wants a joke. So Carrion tells it one. He says, a husband turns to his wife one day and says, I bet you can't think of something to tell me that will make me both happy and sad at the same time. The wife says, your cock is way bigger than your brother's.
That's not a terrible joke. I would have told a dead baby joke.
I know. Don't tell one right now, please.
I got a bunch of them.
I know.
You know which one I'd have gone with.
It's been 8 years. I know.
You've heard them.
I've heard them. Carrion names his sword Simon.
Simon?
Simon.
What about Alvin or Theodore? You
No.
didn't pick either of those?
Just Simon. I'm sure Alvin and Theodore are coming.
Yeah. Are they coming or are they just breathing heavy?
Stop
Boom!
It. Stop it.
Boom! Got it.
Okay.
That's that chipmunk orgasm joke.
Jesus.
You're welcome.
They go back to the library.
So we're going to talk about a library after that.
I'm trying to move on, Justin. The shadow gate opens in the ceiling. Everlane falls through. Lorth and Renfus help her and Carrie Ann go through. They like push him up to get through. Everlane yells something about water, and then Ceres falls out of this other shadow gate and lands in a frozen lake. She can't swim because she grew up in a desert.
Right. Swimming is a little bit foreign when you grew up in a desert.
Yeah. So Lorth pulls her out. He gets Carrie Ann next. She sees an obsidian mountain with a cliff. Renfus isn't there. So Ceres touches the mountain and hears again Anaroth Moor. She tells Carrie Ann and Lorth to climb. They end up outside an amphitheater. People in the stands are yelling Anaroth Moor over and over and over again. Lorth says it means release us. Ceres sees a labyrinth in the amphitheater. No David Bowie, though.
No David Bowie.
No David Bowie.
With his dick out.
It's not out.
It's not out, but you can see it. You can tell if David Bowie is circumcised or not in those pants.
You said the same thing last time we brought it up.
Well, how do you not bring it up? It's the most notable part of the movie. And it's a great movie. But David Bowie's dick is the star.
Okay. Heron from Madra's guard comes up behind them. He's supposed to be dead, so that's a big deal.
All right.
His eyes are both like fully made of Quicksilver now.
So he's a full-blown robot.
Sure. Cyborg. And there are feeders coming up behind him. Carrie Ann makes like a weird vortex, and they go through it. She lands next to Kingfisher. He's all beat up and covered in blood. Malcolm, the vampire guy, Belicon, the king, and Madra, the queen, are sitting on a dais in front of them. All three of them are together for some reason. Heron knocks Carrie Ann out. Madra calls Malcolm her brother. This says she only closed the Quicksilver portal because Belicon sent an assassin for her. Belicon says he was sending people to feed Malcolm's army and says he's going to release Kingfisher from his oath so he can tell everyone what happened at Gilithire, which is the city that he supposedly burned to the ground.
Right.
Kingfisher says there was a horde of 10,000. By the time he got there, they were inside the city, so he went to find Malcolm and found Belicon instead. Realized he was working with Malcolm. So Belicon offered a deal. He flipped a coin. If it landed on heads, Malcolm would call off the horde. If it landed on tails, Malcolm would destroy the city. Kingfisher wasn't allowed to say anything about Malcolm or Belicon or the deal until the coin hit the ground. But Belicon caught it out of the air before it landed. So he's been basically living in limbo this entire time.
Okay.
Because they tricked him.
Right.
Kingfisher decided the best thing to do to save everybody was to burn the city with all the vampires in it.
I mean, that's a solution.
So then Malcolm made the labyrinth and put the coin in the center, filled the amphitheater with the people who were in the city. So that's the people who are yelling, release us, release us, release us. If Kingfisher found the coin and made it hit the ground, they would be released from their suffering. Kingfisher tells Madra he's going to kill her for sterilizing Ceres. He's still mad about that.
All right. A little bent out of shape. He was wanting to make some babies.
Malcolm says after 110 years, Kingfisher went through the Quicksilver under the labyrinth, and that's when he rescued Ceres. Kingfisher takes the sword Solace from Ceres' back, and he stabs Belicon. And then Heron starts coming for Ceres. Malcolm goes for Kingfisher and Carrie Ann. Kingfisher says they need to go in the labyrinth, so they all book it. They start running for a door. Kingfisher says the walls will move. They walk into a room and it's got a giant spider, but it has like a person's chest and head. So it's like half person, half spider.
Okay.
And fucking huge.
That's a thing.
Kingfisher says it tracks movement and tells Ceres she needs to find the Quicksilver pool. She can hear it, so she listens carefully. She hears it behind the spider. They all move very slowly to the door. The spider lunges for them. So Ceres and Lorth stab it. Kingfisher says it's going to respawn soon, so they have to move. The walls start moving faster as they get closer to the Quicksilver. They fall into a room with a big pile of coins, and Malcolm, Belicon, and Madra are already there. Carrie Ann starts
Scrooge McDuck is there.
Scrooge, yeah, it's Scrooge McDuck vibes. Carrie Ann starts goading Malcolm. Kingfisher says in Ceres' head, because they have like telepathic stuff.
Right. From the fucking.
Yeah. That the real coin has Quicksilver. So, 1, it should burn Malcolm, and 2, she should be able to hear it. Carrie Ann dares Malcolm to bite him. So he does, but then he stumbles back after a minute. And then Carrie says he's actually a son of the people who cured the blood curse. So Carrie is a fae in hiding, and the cure for the blood curse is drinking his blood.
Ah.
Kingfisher tells Ceres to go find the coin, gives her the fancy sword. So she starts talking to the Quicksilver and says she needs to save her mate. The Quicksilver asks for a favor, leads her back to the spider because the coin is inside its throat.
Oh.
She grabs it. It takes a while because she's a little freaked out about it.
Well, yeah, you're reaching inside of a spider's throat.
Yep. And then Malcolm grabs her. His skin is melting off, which is super gross. And then he knocks her over and takes the coin. He starts talking about how much he wants Kingfisher. So he's into Kingfisher
All right.
in a real weird way. She stabs him in the throat, and then he straight up punches a hole through her stomach.
Okay.
She grabs the coin and then lets it fall, and then cuts off Malcolm's head. Passes out for a minute, so the coin officially hit the ground. She comes to with Kingfisher, and Teledius, the vampire next to her. Kingfisher says he'll give her part of his soul. Sarah says no, she'll reject the bond if he does that. And then Teledius says there's another way. Kingfisher tells him to do it. Kingfisher is carrying Ceres out of the labyrinth when she hears a voice. It asks if she's prepared to make sacrifices. She says yes. It says it's calling in the favor and wants an audience with her. So she gets pulled like magically straight back to the Quicksilver. She hears two girls and realizes she's lying in the grass. One of the girls asks what sex is like with Kingfisher, which is weird. Turns out he's into choking, in case you were
Yeah, he's into choking. Also, he's 7 feet tall, so he's got a big old piece on him, and she's like 5'2", so...
One of the girls says Kingfisher is her father's champion. They are Bel and Mithin, who are the twin goddesses.
Right.
They take her to a tree by a river of Quicksilver. There's a guy sitting on a rock. It's Zareth, the god of chaos, so they're not make-believe in this world. He says he's been watching her. She was supposed to be born a fae, but he tried to keep her and Kingfisher from meeting because their meeting causes destruction in the universe. He says he brought Kingfisher there after his mother died and wouldn't let the other gods kill him. There was some uncertain outcomes, so he gave them both the god marks to protect them. He says if she severs herself from the universe, the other gods won't be able to do anything. So he says he'll change her into something that has never existed before. She agrees, and then he pushes her into the Quicksilver River. She sits up in bed and then falls out. There's a bucket next to her, so she grabs it and then throws up again.
We got 4 barfs now.
Teledius comes in and says it's called the Great Purge. It's a normal part of becoming a vampire because he bit her. He made her into a vampire so she wouldn't die. But then he helps her to a mirror. She's got the pointed ears and the long teeth. He says she is something no one has ever seen before. She's somehow half vampire and half fae. He reminds her what happened in the labyrinth. Says he blocked the transition from her memory. So she tells him to unblock it. She remembers laying in bed for 3 days. She finds Carrion and says he should have told her he was heir to the Fae throne. He says Kingfisher's dad brought him to Zoberin when he was young, so he got stuck there. One of Madra's slaves took him to the third board and raised him. So he's been outliving all of these people, but it's like a whole family of people who've been taking care of him, generation after generation after generation.
So he's super old.
He's super old. He's Fae. Kingfisher comes in and asks if he did the right thing. She notices there's less Quicksilver in his eye, so that's why he was seeing the healer, because he was helping try to get some of that out. And then he tells her that when a monarch is killed, the crown goes to the person who killed them. So she is now the vampire queen.
Oh, neat.
And that's the end of the book.
Okay.
We did it!
All right, we made it. And you almost died at the end. You've been coughing. We were obviously going to edit out all the coughing, but you've been coughing like crazy for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I've had a cold, and it's getting better, but I think it hit me for a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did it.
Yay.
What do you think I rated this one?
Probably a 4.
Yeah, I mean, it got a little cartoon villainy at the end there.
Yeah, it did. It seems like they spent a lot of time building up, and then the end is just like, oh shit, we got to get all of this done. Cram it all in here in the last couple chapters.
I mean, there was a lot in general in the book, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of book. It looks like a real big. There's a lot of pages.
Okay, I know you don't like that.
I don't. Also, look, we're at 1 hour and 45 minutes. I mean, we're going to cut this down a little bit, but it's a long recording.
Yeah,
It's a lot of book.
it's a lot of book, but we did it.
We did it.
And then next time, we're going to go back to the Folk of the Air,
I don't know what the fuck that is.
The Cruel Prince. We just finished the 3 books.
Right.
We're going to do The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne, the duology.
Great.
You'll be fine.
I'll be fine. I'll survive.
Yeah, you will.
Yay!
Yay! So follow us on Facebook and TikTok,
Do the
FAE
things.
Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye!